Hi everyone, Heather Williams here with the California After School Network for our nearly weekly fireside chats with Michael Funk from the California Department of Education. We have some important announcements for you today, but we are also very excited to be joined by Eduardo and Sharon from Adventure More. So welcome, and we'll have you all introduce yourselves shortly, but very excited to have you with us today. And Michael, we'll just jump into it. Things shifted again last week, and I know you have some important updates for the field, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Just to prove, this is not a background. I'm actually outside. The department was actually shut down for the next 2 days for sanitization for reasons you might deduce from that. And everyone's safe. And my house is small, and my wife is on a loud Zoom call. So I made it to the park. So here we are. Hello, everyone. Last Friday was another shift. It feels a little bit like a deja vu for many of us when things were shifting a lot last spring. And last Friday, the governor, of course, made a very important announcement that any school in a county that's on the COVID watch list is closed to in-person instruction and under the advisement of the county offices of health. And any kind of reopening will depend on that collaboration and advisement from the county health offices. And as soon as that announcement came out Friday, understandably, we began to receive a flood of inquiry and emails and phone calls. What does this mean for expanded learning? Because so many of you had been planning on some kind of a hybrid model. Of course, other districts, large districts, had already said they were moving to a distance learning. So it wasn't a complete shift in that moment for many of you. But literally have been working through the weekend, Monday and yesterday, with the Department of Finance, the governor's office, and our executive team here and legal team here at the California Department of Education to find some answers that you've been asking about what this means for expanded learning. And I'm actually going to do something I normally don't do on this. I'm actually going to read, because literally late yesterday afternoon, I received verbal confirmation of the Department of Finance's response to our inquiries, and this morning had received the actual written response. And I'm going to read it, because we're going to be putting this probably on the website somewhere. There's going to be some formal record of this, but I'm going to read it right from my iPad here. So the governor's recent announcement prohibits in-person instruction on school campuses in counties that are on the state's COVID-19 monitoring list. Also, the 2021 Education Omnibus Trailer Bill, Senate Bill 98, waives sections of Education Code in order to provide flexibility to the expanded learning programs. In summary, the sections of Education Code to be waived cover the following: suspending grant reductions based on meeting attendance targets for the 2020-21 school year, suspending hours of operation, providing maximum flexibility, allowing programs to operate at any time of day, and suspends the 20-to-1 student ratio. The governor's recent announcement prohibits in-person instruction on school campuses in counties that are on COVID-19 monitoring. I already read that. So 3 questions have surfaced. The first question is, are ACEs, 21st Century Elementary and Middle, and 21st Century CCLC assets programs that operate on campus also prohibited from in-person programming, of course, for the county that's on a watch list? And the answer from the Department of Finance is short. This is a local decision. So there's not going to be any guidance or direction from the state level. That will be negotiated locally. And when we say it's a local decision, I want to be clear, that means any decision for opening or doing in-person work on a campus is not a local program leader's decision. It is a decision of the district. It's in consultation with the county health department, but it will be decided locally. Second question, if a campus is closed for in-person instruction and operating in distance learning mode, can the campus be used by the local educational agency and or community-based organization to use expanded learning funds to operate a program to serve school-age children of critical infrastructure workers? The answer, yes, this is allowable, and as space allows, the expanded learning program needs to also serve other eligible students other than the school-age children of critical infrastructure workers. These programs should follow the same health and safety guidelines as outlined in Executive Order N4520. Senate Bill 98 provides the same flexibility to both ACES and 21st century elementary and middle school funded programs for this purpose. I'll pause there. There have been some have inquired that they understand that there are some districts who only want to use expanded learning funding to provide, to serve school-age children of critical infrastructure workers. And the Department of Finance has said, you also must, as space allow, serve other children that would have been eligible for the expanded learning program in addition. There's a reason we're not saying the word childcare. We realize when you're having this conversation with districts, they use childcare. In the past executive order and in this direction from Department of Finance and in all our language, we do not use the word childcare formally because that triggers a reference to licensed programming. And our programs are license exempt per education code if they're located on a school campus. Or in another location determined by a local educational agency. So we understand that in your conversations with districts or grantees that the word childcare might come up, but just to be clear why we use that language that we did. And finally, the third question, many schools, districts are considering offering on-campus, in-person services for the most vulnerable students. Example, special education, English learners, homeless, and foster youth, etc., in pods. To implement this model, some LEAs have asked district or community-based expanded learning staff to be on campus with instructional aides to support these children while they participate in distance learning as defined in Senate Bill 98 or other enrichment activities. And the answer is, this is a local decision and is allowable. These programs should follow the same health and safety guidelines as outlined in Executive Order N4520. I want to break down one sentence there. Distance learning as defined in Senate Bill 98. Senate Bill 98 is very precise in what counts as distance learning for instructional minutes. And in this scenario, the Department of Finance is authorizing ACES and 21st century funding to support staff that are supporting children as they participate in distance learning. That also counts for instructional minutes. So with that out of the way, we know there's going to be other questions that arise. And we also know that, we'll be working with our expanded learning team across the state to provide direction and support. And we will take questions as we go, but I hope that that is helpful information for you to at least navigate the next several weeks leading up to summer. So now to our guests. Eduardo and Sharon, I had the chance to visit your program, I believe it was last summer. I have no sense of time anymore, like most of us, but it was actually an in-person program on a campus here in Sacramento, and I have such a deep sense of remembrance of the impact that this had on me personally, and the staff that came with me to really, it was palpable, the passion, the vision, the heart, the love. The children were so deeply engaged, and it was just so impressed with the authenticity and the impact that you all were having on children in so many ways. And then, of course, this past summer, there was no opportunity to bring your kids together in person again. And Adventure More had to figure out how to do something that they hadn't tried before. And many of your peers across California are in the same boat. They are, what do we do now? We were all set to go this direction a few weeks ago with the hybrid model, and we tried to do some things last spring. We feel like some were successful, some were not. Now we're facing, like, we got weeks to plan. How do we really become relevant and impactful in all the ways we're used to being when we're in person, when we are able to actually be present with children, love them, nurture them, support them? You guys have done a great job with that this summer. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story, about kind of the pivot that you've made organizationally, and what's kind of the sauce, the secret sauce that goes into an impactful online version of expanded learning. So welcome, Eduardo and Sharon.
Thank you for having us, Michael and Heather. You know, when you were reading, you know, this new kind of directive from the financial department, you know, it made me think about, in a way, I'm so grateful that the focus now is so much on equity, right? So many people are concerned that, are we serving all kids? Are we keeping in mind the most vulnerable populations and people with special needs? And, you know, I think this awareness and this focus on all levels, it's really that focus is what helped us design the programs that we did this summer, and it's also what's continuing to guide us as we design for the fall, and how do we support schools and teachers and parents moving forward. I think people's values have been put to the forefront, and we're really holding ourselves accountable when we design things and when we create policies to make sure that that we're being as equitable as we possibly can. And people are going to disagree, right? But the fact that we're actually having those conversations and that's at the forefront, I think is a really powerful statement to, like, where we are, you know, as a people, right? As a society, that equity is at the forefront. So, you know, that being said, that's really what guided us when we made our pivot. You know, March 13th, that fateful Friday the 13th, when all the schools, the last of the schools in California closed, we gathered our team and said, okay, we've got a couple design challenges here ahead of us. You know, if summer's not going to happen in person, at that point we didn't know yet, but we knew there was a good chance that can happen. How do we design our camps to go online and virtual, and create that same experience, that human connection, that magic that we know happens at camp? Like, how do we create an experience for kids in the online world? And then the second design challenge is, how do we make it equitable, right? How do we price something so that we're not adding more inequity into this world where we already know there's going to be programs that are going to charge a lot of money for their online programs. We want to create something everyone can have access to. So those were really the two design challenges that we had in front of us. And yeah, Sharon.
Well, and I would also add that what happened to us, Ed and I, Eduardo and I we're at 17 years. So we co-founded this 17 years ago. And similar to what you were saying, Michael, here we are floating, and we've done this 17 years. There's certain aspects that are routine and turnkey, other aspects that are new every year. And we were actually starting to talk about what's our legacy, what's going to happen after we leave. And these were the kinds of conversations that we're having. And this specific moment encouraged us to have a reconciliation, a personal reconciliation process of what is the impact that we intended to have and what's actually happened. And done in a real way, we saw some things revealed to us that were not what we wanted, and they left a lot of gaps. And that was even more fuel to the fire of creating a program that had equity. It's not just a cute word for us. It was something that we really, really looked inward and discovered what we had been propelling accidentally. Just the personal aspect of it was so powerful for me. I think I speak for both of us, but for me. And then the fact that we have a platform in other words, our organization to implement change was a really amazing moment for us as an organization, as individuals.
Yeah, so talk about that equity piece in pricing. I mean, just for context for people on the, you do partner with school districts, you do receive ACES, 21st Century, or some expanded learning funding, but you also have a fee-based structure to help support and supplement the work. So talk about your equity decisions that you implemented into that restructuring.
Yeah, so the old ways of financial aid were broken, right? When this whole COVID thing happened, we realized very quickly a family could be in financial need from one instant to the next. A parent could get laid off, one day to the next. And the old ways of doing financial aid were broken, because you can't have people filling out financial aid applications, waiting weeks or months to get approved to go into your program. We need to create a system that was immediate, where we can offer financial assistance immediately. So, and what we realized is most systems in this world, like most of our financial systems, are designed they're designed around fear as opposed to love. Most financial systems, you're afraid of someone taking advantage of you, and so you create these hoops that people have to jump through to prove that they have need, right? Like that they make a certain income, that they have a sad enough story, that and you make them fill out all these things and make them feel like they have to compete with other people to get these coveted spots wherever they are, right? And so what we decided is, like, let's create a system that actually aligns with our values. We want to lead with love. How do we create a system that leads with love? How do we create a system that values human dignity and trust? We say we stand for curiosity, courage, and kindness. Like we're trying to build these kind of humans in the world. Well, let's create a system that reflects that. So we decided to go with an honor system pricing model. So what that means is we actually put out a price for our programs. For our drop-ins is like $15 an hour right now. And then what we do publicly is post right next to it a discount, or it's called a discount. It's called an honor code, where you get a 50% off or 80% off that rate, and you can enter that code in immediately. There's no financial aid applications, no sliding scale applications. We just trust you. If you need help, go ahead, enter in that code. If you don't need help, awesome. Help us stand for equity. Help us create a sustainable model of educational equity and pay the $15. And if you can afford more, we're a nonprofit, you can donate more. And in this way, we could create a system where parents are actually the ones who are creating the opportunity for other families who have less means to get online education immediately. We know that the state's going to be strapped for money, right? The federal government is strapped for money. Everybody's going to be strapped for money right now. We cannot always just rely on someone else to help us with the funding. Even when you get ACES funding, we all know it's not enough to cover the amount of the program, right? If you want to do a high quality program, you need something else, right? You're going to need some other foundation funding, or you're going to do your own fundraising. You need to supplement it. And what we want to do is create a model where parents could actually we just create a space for parents to stand for equity, stand in their values, say, hey, I want to support, a program that allows everyone in the door at the same time. Nobody waits. Everyone's in the same door. And I'm okay knowing that I'm going to pay more and knowing that someone else is going to pay less. And I believe that they need help, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to worry about what I can do to be a force for equity in the world right now.
But what I'm also noting here is, for the children that show up, no one knows who put in the code. Everyone's just in.
Everyone's in.
Everyone's in.
Everyone's in at the same time.
Not only the kids don't know, but the staff. This is an unknown. Doesn't matter. It gets lost in the journey, and then you have a room full of humans in there.
Yeah, love it.
And
what happened? So, how did you do with that?
Well, I mean, because of this, creating this model that allows everyone in, we actually now have kids joining us not only from all over the state, but from all over the country. As of last week, we were up to 43 different states of kids logging in 6 countries.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's been amazing, because there's no barriers, there's no walls, it's like everyone can come in. The worst thing we need to do is open up another Zoom room, right? Which is a lot easier than renting another school facility.
Yeah.
So we can have everyone. Yes, Sharon.
Well, I also want to add, you said, what happened? Well, I would say that what happened was we suddenly, in a time that is so fueled by fear and so divisive and so can be dark and negative, this experiment that we ran reflected back to us that actually, given the opportunity, people will show up with kindness. People will show up with generosity. And I remember the types of conversations we were having in the beginning. I know this was just months ago, but it seems like years ago. We were still in awe of the kindness, of the generosity that was happening in the backdrop of a pandemic that we all haven't lived through. So in regards to what happened, my first answer is I started believing again in humanity. I started believing again in human kindness. And I was just thinking as Ed was speaking, this model of allowing people to create equity, not us forcing it, but allowing people to create it, has made me become a different consumer. The way I show up now, I don't donate, right? I mean, that's kind of the old model, but I'll actually pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm paying a membership fee. Is there any way I could pay time and a half for that? And you can do with it what you want. Because I recognize that I'm right now employed and I know so many people aren't. I don't know that I would have done that otherwise. So not only did it reflect back to me something I needed to be reminded of, it's made me now go back out there and be somebody I want to be in a force of equity.
It's very inspiring. So we're getting close to our normal time, but I want you to take a few minutes to just, you've got a lot of people out there who haven't figured out how to translate the practices that they do in person, the kind of connection and love and care and support they can give a student, a child, when they're in person. How do we do that online? Can you just say a little bit about what are the guiding principles, the ingredients of something that, I mean, it's obviously engaging. You've got people jumping in from all over the world, so it's obviously designed well. So give us some pointers.
I'll be happy to speak to like the kid part, and then Sharon, yep. I know she's the one who focuses on the staff and the professional development that we do. So I think you need both of those, right? So with the kids, one of the key parts is having small ratios, right? Our ratios are 1:8 to 1:15 at max, which I think with distance learning and the hybrid models, the AB models, I think that'll work well. If kids are even in the online world, if you're still doing that AB model and you have your 12 to 15 kids, great, that's a great start. We try to engage with our kids at least once every 8 to 10 minutes. Every single child should be saying something. So calling on kids constantly. Like the thing where you lose kids in distance learning is if you're just lecturing, right? And if you're just talking for 20 minutes or 30, we lose adults, right? Adults can't listen for 20, 30 minutes. A 6-year-old definitely can't. So, it's gotta be constant engagement, small activities, 5 to 10 minute activities or 5 to 10 minute content, and then interacting with the kids. Lots of SEL. I mean, we do personal check-ins with the kids, again, making them feel heard and engaged from the very beginning. Go around and saying a feeling word. How are you feeling today? Sometimes, a staff member, there might be a discussion that a child wants to have, especially, we've had so many current events and things that kids want to talk about and that are coming up for kids. Sometimes we just take those 10, 15 minutes. You might be in a science lesson, but your kids want to talk about, systemic racism or, like there's something that comes up that they want to talk about. Give some space for that. You need to give some space to meet kids where they're at in that moment. And when they feel heard, and that makes them feel safe, and they'll be more likely to engage with you, whatever it is you want to teach with them after that. So those would be some of my quick tips. Sharon, how about on the staff side?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting to me in that moment was recognizing we have hundreds of people who feel the call to work with young kids. That's what enlivens them. And suddenly they don't have a venue of where to do that. So what we did was we created a coach program, also virtual, nobody's favorite. They all wished to work in person. And yet the same thing happened where they reflected back to me what a deep sense of fulfillment they were having through these one-on-one virtual meetings. So not only have we continued to offer kids a mentor and mentee relationship with our staff, but the forgotten part is that these staff, young, old, experienced, it doesn't matter, their calling is to do this work, and we've also provided a venue for them to express what is soulfully their work in the world. So, and one key I would say about that, which I have found personally very interesting, is the word integration constantly comes up for me. I mean, that's my living room, right? I am seeing your personal rooms. There used to be such a separation we did. Sometimes that old model of teacher and student, for me personally, I have worked hard to be less compartmentalized. And so we offer now this way of integrating your whole person as a teacher, as a role model, as a mentor, and reflect that to the child. I think that's really big. We're no longer portraying ourselves the way we want to. We're just being ourselves. And that's both physically and not physical. I find that so interesting in this very moment. And an invitation for us as educators.
Thank you for all you're doing. Heather, well, one thing I want to mention, Eduardo, when you mentioned like limiting the size of one practical thing I thought about is by doing that, you allow everyone to be seen on the Zoom screen in the gallery view, as opposed to I have to scroll through this to see people's faces. And I think that's huge. Great, concrete and inspiring work. Heather, speaking of people tune out after 20 minutes, we're probably ought to.
Yeah, so
we probably ought to.
we'll start to wrap up, and so I'll just give a quick moment to both you and Eduardo and Sharon. One of the things that I tend to ask at the end of these fireside chats is, so much is happening so quickly. Things are constantly shifting week to week, so it can be overwhelming. So just one piece of advice for where people can start as they're doing this work. I know you gave lots of great advice, but maybe just something that helped you move forward and take action in the midst of chaos.
For me personally, I would say identify what are your core universal values. That was something, an exercise we did back in November with an Equity for Leadership cohort that we were part of, and I think if you can identify what are the core values that you really stand for, everything you design after that will reflect those, and you'll be proud of what you're putting into the world, and you'll be aligned with what you're doing in the world. For me, it was my name is Eduardo, and I stand for equity, authenticity, and courage, and that's my anchor now with everything that I design, that I'm a part of.
Awesome.
Yeah, and for me, it's furthering the values, of course, connecting to that is integration. No need, I mentioned it a minute ago, but integrate all aspects of myself, whether it's personal or professional, integrating and allowing my whole self to show up in the workspace and the personal space equally.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's amazing to hear about all the work you have done in such a short amount of time, and really appreciate your emphasis on equity and serving our kids. So thank you both. And yeah, for everyone out in the field, keep sharing your stories. We'll keep sharing your stories. Keep sending those questions along. We'll just keep adding them to the list and keep working to answer them. So Michael, I will turn it over to you for last closing words.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Just going to repeat things I say all the time. This is our time. We need to step in. We need to be children-centered. Put our kids first. We need to be staff-centered. Put our staff first. If our staff are going to be doing some of these things that the Department of Finance just gave permission for, we need to work hard and be incredibly thoughtful about their safety, about their conditions, to work for equity for them as well. With great flexibility comes great responsibility on all fronts. And finally, as Eduardo also said earlier, and I always say, lead with love. And I'm now going to say, don't forget to love yourself. Take care of yourself. All right, this is our time. We'll talk to you next week.